Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago, and of course the globe. Welcome to Real Talk Corner. Hadassa, how are you?
Hi, I am fine, thank you. How are you, Esther?
Well, good evening, Trinidad and Tobago, and all our viewers. This is Real Talk Corner, and it's the place where conversation sparks and every voice matters. Yeah, so tonight I'm happy because my co host is here with me, and it's a beautiful Tuesday. It has been a beautiful Tuesday, and it is still a beautiful Tuesday evening. It's very warm, not too cold. And it's the 21st day in the month of April in the year 2026. And you know, yeah, this is my part. I love to say, and oh, how the time is flying. Because April just started. We just celebrated the Easter weekend and all of that. And here it is, we're almost to the end. It's time for salary again. It's time to pay bills. It's time, that time where some people start hurting their head. Oh gosh, I wonder if I have enough money to pay this bill and to pay that and to buy food and whatever. But here what? Don't worry about it, as the money comes, do what you have to do. If you didn't get money to pay a bill and you had to, go to the person you had to pay it to and just ask them to give you a few days or something. But do not stress. Yeah? Somebody said give me a few days for rent to pay the rent. You understand? Listen, we have to be understanding, both landlords and employers, employees. I mean, we can't overdo it, right? We cannot overdo it because the banks, they take interest when you pay late, and so is every other financial institution. They don't care, it doesn't matter what goes on. They have to make their profit. They don't care about us, all right? The holders of these bank licenses, the financial people. But you know what? Trusting God. People like to say I am crazy. I'm not crazy. I say it as it is. I trust in God. My faith and everything is in God. But if you get my vex, I tell you what I have to tell you, and I done. If you tell me I offend you and it's too deep, I will apologize and I would mean it. You understand? My co-hosts know that. I just say it as it is. It's tell me a hyper. Yes, I was always a hyper child and I'm still hyper. I don't know when that will cool down, but when I get in the groove, so, I just feel like a preaching. But good night to all of my viewers and good night to my co-host. We have a very special guest who is going to be joining us momentarily, and he's no stranger to Real Talk, and I'm hoping he would come on soon. But let me give my co-host Hadassa Charles McLeod, bubbly face, sweetheart, her opportunity to welcome every one of you of our viewers.
Good night, Trinidad and Tobago. I hope everybody is doing great. Welcome back to another episode. We are always so happy and excited to have these conversations with you, to have our ears to the ground, so to speak, to understand what is happening in our community and how decisions that are made on a daily basis are shaping our lives in real time. So it's always great to be on. I'm excited for our guest tonight. Um, I have never experienced as Esther being a rah 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 with me. She's always very nice to me. So maybe she has a different face for different people. So I'm probably one of the lucky ones. But she talked about the year going by really fast, and I have to agree. And I feel like it makes me think about the Bible talk about redeeming your time. The days are really getting shorter. So it is less time and energy that you should be spending listening to PNM propaganda nonsense, and you should be paying attention to your family and your friends and your loved ones and your health and the things that are important and the things that matter, and making sure that you're treating everybody with kindness and you don't hold grudge and unforgiveness. I mean, those are the things we should be focusing on. So yeah, it's great to be on tonight. Let's talk about some stuff.
Definitely, definitely. But Hada, so the truth is, I am a sweetheart. I am normally
I
not
know
a
that.
rara person. I go down good with everybody. I'm very humble, but when you get me mad, I just tell you what I have to tell you, that's all. And if it offend you, I'm always quick to say, well, I'm sorry. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I stand my ground. You understand what I mean? So it's not that I'm a rah-rah person. I love to sing. I love to talk. I love to make people happy around me. But if you're sour, you're like lime and lemon. Come on, I just push you aside. But this is me, and I don't want to change for nothing. I want to remain who I am because I'm happy with me. And this song now that is trending is "I Celebrate Me." Yes, I love to celebrate me, and I love to be who I am. I don't want to change for anything, and that's just about it. I don't fuss much. I don't. My daughter might say otherwise, because I have to keep her in check. Children and parents is a different thing, but when it comes to people in general, I'm just cool, right? But tonight we have a lot lined up, and we want to get through this. And like I said, we have a guest. He will be coming on shortly. But before we go any further, I want to send out my condolences to the officer who got killed in, well, I have to say line of duty, because she was in the station, and it is unfortunate, the many stories that we have been hearing. I mean, on Sunday, I catch a fit because I'm like, what it is going on? And this can't be real, you understand? And also, I felt as though it was a plan to destabilize our country. And hence the reason I said what I said. Some people was offended. I was made to understand. And if you were offended, I am sorry. Don't be bothered. If it didn't, go down nice with you, take it and throw it behind your back. Don't study what I am saying. Listen to only the good. If what I say offends you or make you feel in a kind of way, don't study me. I saying what I have to say and what I think I should say, all right? Because I know for a fact that the government that is running this country and that is managing the resources of this country, and very little resources, they are not about foolishness. And I'm telling you, when I saw the person that they identify as the person who orchestrated this whole thing, a 28-year-old African young man, it hurt my heart even more, because it's an African woman, it's an African young man. Why? You understand? And when you saw the real picture, this man looking like he's 40-something years of age. And I am saying this as well. There is much more to that. I am still, in my spirit, I am saying, somebody planned to destabilize our country because they find our government is doing too well. We are doing good. The UNC government has done a lot in 1 year. And anything on the other side party to destabilize this country, they're going to do it. You all remember Emailgate? You all remember all kind of stuff they just come up with. And remember, they're hurting, they're vexed that they lose the election. That was the least thing they were expecting. So let me say this. I was really angry because I'm saying inside of the police station, what next? What next will they do? But, God knows best. He knows everything. He knows the secret that we don't know. And let me say this. What in the dark does always come to the light, but they cannot stop this government from the turnaround, the 360-degree turnaround that is taking place in this country. It is only 1 year, and we are looking forward to Saturday when the Congress meets and we rally into what has happened and what is going to be taking place in the next 12 months. I am grateful for being a part of this team, a part of this government, this party, the UNC party, and this government. And I want to say high praise and thanks after God to our Honorable Prime Minister, the one and only Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bissassa, SCMP. And you know what? She's celebrating her birthday. All you ain't drinking no wine tonight? She is celebrating her birthday in the daytime. No, we in April. She is an April born, and I am thankful to God. Yeah? I'm celebrating her. I am celebrating with her as well, And, you know, as we come to a close, we would sing that song, we would play that song for her, and we will toast because, I mean, come on, it's our Prime Minister, a woman of intelligence, a woman with brains and beauty, a woman classy, a woman who they can't put their foot in her shoes, and that is why they are so vexed. But we are not going to be bothered about them. We're going to concentrate on what we need to do as a party, as a government, to go forward. And you know, everybody have their views and opinions and whatever. But we are staying focused to ensure that we have the turnaround in the economy that we want. Don't be fooled. The PNM has left this country in a devastated condition, moneyless, penniless, whatever you want to call it. But we know, as our Prime Minister says, if you put God in front and walk behind, everything is going to be all right. And I understand that our guest is on, so let me take the opportunity to welcome, put a smile on that face, my friend Lyndon Mark. Let us take
Good
this
evening. How you
opportunity
doing?
to welcome Lyndon on the show. Hadassa is extremely happy when she heard that you was going to be here, right? So we welcome you to Real Talk
Hi,
Corner. It
Hadassa. How you doing?
has been a long time.
I good.
Right. Good. So, I'm listening to the discussion. I hear we are talking, a number of moving parts to the table. So, first I want to say there is an integrity line that needs to remain intact. I am, as a person, you know, the hardest thing for a lot of us as activists is ensuring that there is balance in the scale of what we're doing. Some people directly would want to probably feel your toe the line. Some people might say you will either bury your head to the reality of what's going on, or some people will need to speak up on some things. And I'm going to tell you this with me, where credibility is concerned, if it were me to sit to the Prime Minister right now and make some very hard recommendations, I don't think the players who are sitting at the table will like those decisions. Because where the Prime Minister now has to come and fix the mess of a former administration, and to ensure that when she leaves this scale of politics, a legacy remains. It's not going to be a very easy thing. We're going to have to mash some hard tools. People are going to have to boil out to this, but it will really need to be done if we need to really get it done. And I say that because, today or very recently, just where I heard a senator said, serious crimes are done. This incident comes to blow up in the government's face. And Dr. Esther, I will say to you, I am also somewhat very convinced that there are forces working to destabilize the government. I've been watching for the last 6 months, where, going all the way back to the issue of Donald Trump and all what we saw last year, I am honestly believing that there is a move to destabilize the country. And what we just saw very recently in the last 48 hours tells us something very significant, that national security protocols in Trinidad and Tobago needs to be revamped and changed immediately. And if we are going to fix this situation where the country needs to see a real justice system that's working, I think now is the opportune time for the Prime Minister to understand. She needs immediate transformation of the justice system, which includes everything happens from the person who is being arrested to being processed to going through the court system. It needs to be seriously evaluated. And now, let me just put this part. For the persons who said, last year, the numbers are down, I want you all to picture this. I want you to picture the former Minister of Finance coming and say to the nation, in whereby we are saying that there is no money missing from the avenue of the Ministry of Finance. Then it makes the Auditor General's work not needed, because she raised the concern. And I'm saying that we need to ensure that the policies that we are setting for ourselves is the same policy that can work if the other party is on the table. So what I'm saying is, as of looking right now, could we say that the numbers of murders are not down? Yes, we could say it's the murders are down. Are there any official studies that are really saying that official crimes are down? No, there is no official study. And I think if we play in this game, we need to play this game correctly. Therefore, I will say this as someone who maintains the avenue of independent observation. Until I could see the Central Statistics Office doing the necessary study and research and the data, and we can compile a full comprehensive data, automatically, I cannot say that serious crimes are done. And we have to be very careful of what we are determining as serious crimes. Because I will say this tonight. If serious crimes are seriously done, and it automatically means that the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago now feel safer, then I'm saying Kamala Prasad Bissessa as the Prime Minister would have definitely completed her job in 1 year. And that would have been an up-tuned task to the table that no other government has completed. Fact, that has not been completed. And before we could talk well, I prefer to see not a minister coming and say directly serious crimes are done. I want to see, show me the data. And then let's work with the comprehensive data that says serious crimes, shootings, robberies, whatever the case may be, if it is literally down to that point, no problem. But I don't like to play the game where we compare in 1 year to the next year, and we could say, yes, last year it was 672 or 626. Now it's now down to a certain amount. Now we compare and say it's 42%. No, that is not the metric. That is not how the comprehensive metrics work. If we're going to talk about looking at an overall analysis of crime situations. And this is why the independent offices, which is supposed to be strong independent offices, need to be able to get the work done and do the work properly. So I don't like this granular design or granular mass office philosophy that we're coming out as persons are saying, yes, serious crimes are done, but do you feel safer? The answer is no. A lot of people don't feel safer. This situation that just happened there, I'm saying it's a serious undermining, but this situation. Sorry, somebody try calling. The shooting of Miss Eversley leaves a lot of national security conversations to happen. And I'm saying, looking at what we just saw there, hearing the accounts, there are conversations in my mind that I'm saying as an independent thing that don't make sense to me. Yeah, we had to hear over 12 hours that it wasn't literally 52 weapons gone missing or 62 weapons. It's over 100 weapons. And there are questions. There are questions behind the idea of the motive to this. And I'm saying if we seriously are talking national security issues and these questions cannot be asked, then there are people who are going to believe that we are doing what just the other administration is doing. And I say that with no apology. Persons are going to be upset about that. But when we look independently at the grand design and the review of certain things, I'm saying the people who operate the municipal policing will have to answer to the taxpayers. Why first? How is it possible that 3 officers are down sleeping at one point in time? Nobody's up guarding the nation's whatever. There are serious questions that are going to be asked. How does it take the government an avenue of 12 hours to only discover that it's not 62 weapons missing or it's now 100 something plus? That makes no sense. There are real questions that needs to be asked. So I am convinced that there are people that is working to undermine the Kamala Prasad Bissessa administration. And I think she needs to be careful. I think she needs to have a proper independent body of team around her who she could be able to go for the avenue of second advice. Because I'm really not too convinced right now that those who are there and are claiming to getting the work done, I'm not too convinced that they really know how they want to get the work done. And looking at what the ground is saying now, independently, nobody knows the crime scene. Nobody knows what's the crime plan. And I don't say that directly with any thing. I'm saying that because that is what I have looked on at the ground to see what is going on. Nobody knows the crime plan of the government at this point in time. And that needs to be looked at.
Hadassa, you want to say anything to that before I?
Um, I agree with a lot of what you said, Lyndon. Before you came on and I was doing my notes, I was thinking about um, how this young corporal died on her job, and that should never happen. So I was thinking about the ways that national security needs to close these gaps to ensure that people who put on a uniform and are out here protecting us can get back home to their families. Um, there have been a lot of conflicting reports, I agree. But one that seems to be a thread is that it was an internal betrayal. So I always feel that it's not enough when a regime changes. A lot of times we are still working with the same personnel. And I think we really need to look at how people are recruited, how they are continue to be employed, what they need to do in order to move up. I feel like if they are entrusted with the security of the public, then they will have to forfeit maybe some privacy. Maybe we might need to be able to scan and look into their personal accounts to see if they are taking bribes or what is happening. I also feel that we need to institute polygraph tests at different intervals because a lot of these things cannot happen unless the bad apples continue to operate within not just the police service, not just the municipal police, but the defense force, the coast guard, and all our national security apparatus. So I felt really sad and very disappointed where that was concerned. I was, however, really impressed though with how swiftly um, the chief of police moved and Minister of National Homeland Security moved to do these investigations and the determination that they have to get to the bottom of it. I feel like when you're comparing administrations, there is a way that they approach these things that is very different from the last administration that gives me a level of confidence. I don't think we are where we need to be, but I also don't feel we are where we used to be. And I personally do feel safer. And I think that is a matter of perspective, that is a matter of where people are. But that has been my experience. And I feel like there is definitely more work to be done and more grounds to be covered for more of the general public to have confidence in what is taking place. So yes, it would be nice to hear more of an in-depth crime plan. It cannot just be a reliance on what we are doing with the U.S. We need to have internal structures, internal overhauling, and very specific timelines and plans to roll out certain things to make sure that the citizens of this country are safe. Esther?
And yes, I agree with the fact that we need to have proper data. We need to have everything sectionized. So when you talk about less murder, serious crime happening, I mean, if you look at the year 2022, you would have seen 605 murders. And we are just dealing with murders, and that is serious crime. 2023, 577. 2024, 626. And in 2025, we came down to 369. And at this point, we have probably about 110. Now, I understand what you're saying, and I always like to be straight. This is why this program is called Real Talk. Because while we want it not to be that way, and we know a lot is taking place behind the scene. We have to be fair and we have to be balanced as well. We inherit a nation that has no finances. That's one. one of the most important things. So wanting to make shift, wanting to do things, there is a lot of things that this government, through our prime ministers and the ministers, would like to do. But the frank truth is there is no money. And while they're putting things in place and sourcing finances, you always hear the prime minister would say when they ask, there is no money, that she is going to find the money. And I recall even before, probably when we came into power, and of course there was the budget to come, the opposition was talking about where's she getting the money to do this, because they knew exactly where they have left this country, moneyless, penniless. But out of fairness, we have to say, in less than a year, just about a year, because of the state of the condition of our country, is everything we have to deal with. And I mean, there are some things you overlook, but truly, national security, national development is supposed to be one of the things that we target first. But how do we do everything in one? We have to ask the question. We inherit a national security that is owing millions of dollars. Could we get anything done as quickly as we want to have it done? No, because you have a lot of bills that has to be paid. This country is owing so much, every department, every ministry. There is no money to do what it is you really want to do. And there is no excuse either, because I know the Prime Minister and her team is going to get the finances to do what has to be done. A lot of overhauling, a lot of revamping, a lot of things that has to change. But we know about the red tapes. We know about the parliament, the constitution, and every time you do something, you have the other side clanging down everything. Everything that is done by the Prime Minister and her team, they have a problem with it. PNM is the one that has this country the way it is. What happened there on Sunday is a system that has been in place for a while now. And in order to change it, you see what took place? Now everything is going to, we're going to try to make sure that this doesn't happen and that. Just imagine, and I agree with Lyndon. 1 minute you heard that she got shot. 1 minute you heard that it was 64 guns missing, 52, 64, then you heard 4,000 ammunition, then you hear all kind of different stories you were hearing on Sunday. And then the final thing we heard is that the autopsy was done and she was strangled and hit with blunt weapon or whatever. She wasn't even shot. So it tells us that we do not have a security that understand what it is to have security over a nation. We have people who have been playing games, and Hadassa, you said it right. We have to do the polytesting or whatever. We have to screen the people better than we have been doing. And I recall years ago that when you were screening someone to become a police officer or whatever, they go into your neighborhood, they put up your picture on the newspaper, they come into your neighborhood to find out about these individuals. Nothing like that has been happening anymore. So a lot of things have to change, but in trying to change, it is going to cost us some money as well. And I'm not making excuse, this is the reality. A lot of things has to be done, and it has been only 1 year. But we can't make that an excuse. We want things to be different. We really doesn't want things to be like when the PNM was in power. So, I mean, when you look at this young man, and I am saying, let us not be fooled. This young man has more persons dealing with the situation. It can't just be him. It just can't be him who orchestrated this plan. And this is why from since Sunday I said, it is a plan to destabilize this country. We must not take this for granted. This didn't just happen like that. They want those weapons to do what they have to do, right? There's talk about, you remember, Com Imbot was saying, he raised the gas, there is no rioters yet. But I feel they want to establish a riot under the United National Congress government. It's as simple as that, in my opinion, because this is the strangest thing I've ever heard in my life in Trinidad and Tobago. In the police station, we heard of incident where a police officer probably sees something and they take them by the range and practicing and they get bullet. We heard of those things, but inside of the station, and now you are hearing that the woman was strangled. So there's a lot to be desired, from before. And you know what? They knew what they did. But they want to cast blame on the UNC government. They want to talk about our prime minister is a failure and all of that. She is not a failure. It's what has to be dealt with. Just think about it. Fire station without any fire tenders for years. Finally, we have gotten some fire tenders. For years, no fire tender in a lot of the fire station, and whatever they have wasn't performing properly. So we have to understand, and I'm not going to say things is not right, but it's not because of the UNC. This is what we got, we inherited. It is worse than when we came in 2010, 2015. What the PNM has done with all the finances, every budget they're reading is billions of dollars. And what have they been doing? And this is what we need to let the people know, because people are getting angry. I mean, I was angry on Sunday morning. People are getting angry because this is not happening. Jobs is not coming in place. Okay? People are frustrated, and we know that. And we keep asking them to have patience, and we want them to have patience. But for how long can they have patience? Because the breadline people have no food to eat. They can't feed their children. I am on the ground. Children are not going to school. Parents have no money to send their children to school. Some of them, even if you give them a hamper with what? How long is it going to last for? They have to get their school uniform. They have to get their sneakers, and they have to be able to be in a frame of mind to go to school. And I know our Prime Minister is working on all of these things. We do not understand the magnitude of how this PNM government have left our country. And this is what we need to help people to understand. Things are happening, and I'm going to share some of it later on tonight. Things are happening. Every minister is working round the clock with our Prime Minister to make this nation or this country a better place. People are frustrated, but the frustration didn't start last year. It started a long time ago. That is why they voted out the PNM. But it is not easy to just, in 1 year, everybody want to throw up their hand and say, but the Prime Minister didn't do this and this didn't happen. All those things that Lyndon even spoke about, we are working on it. You know what is the debt that the police service, national security have under the police service alone? We're not talking about, what do you call them, regiment, the army, coast guard. We're talking about the police service alone. Nothing could be done because there is no money. And they are fighting and putting things in place, generating income to put things in place. But we don't understand, and it's not everything they can share. And I heard you say, we don't know what the crime plan is. But I'll leave that for another time.
Can I just say,
yes, Lyndon, go ahead.
If we are going with the concept now that says we need to find money to fix certain issues, then I think it must be easily translated for the man on the ground to understand our financial debt and what we are into. And I want to also continuously say, if it is we don't have the finances, the prerequisite finances for certain things, then there are some very harsh decisions that needs to be made now in the benefit of the country. Because here is the situation, Dr. Esther, and I'm going to say this to you. The man who is paying the tax does not want to be frustrated for the next 5 years. Yeah. It's only been one, and they have already been feeling that they have to be taxed. And I'm saying the time is going to have to come now to make some very hard decisions. If the Prime Minister is going to directly seriously take into account and change the dynamics of what we have, there's some very harsh, realistic perceptions that we are going to have to face. One is either now in Trinidad and Tobago can afford to pay the office of the Prime Minister and can also afford to pay and maintain the office of the President. If the money is not there, and we realize that there's an ongoing problem and that there's also one independent institution who is not following the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, that by the time police officers go to court, that they can't directly prove the matter, etc., and then it's coming to cost taxpayers more money. Till it have judges, Frank C. Passad, have to come out and say it's time police officers feel the brunt of it in their own pockets. We're going to have to make some very harsh choices. And those choices will either mean one, constitution reform needs to come about now. The government should now look at their next harsh 90 working days to bring about this constitution reform that starts to one, what is the budget of the government's pocket to be able to function? If it is costing us $20 million a year to just for the office of the president alone, then we need to decide as real taxpayers whether or not we can afford to have an office of a president and have an office of a prime minister. It cannot make sense. And this is where I say, for me personally, I don't mix matters when it comes to the people first. Because at the end of the day, if you're saying it's already been set on the ground, this administration is there are more hiring entities to get the job done, no problem. We had to know to balance the scale. Could we maintain the office of the president? Could we maintain the office of the prime minister? Either it have to be one head of state, cannot be two. Now, saying that conversation will rival a whole different avenue of conversations, because again, we have poor people living on the street. We have poor people right now can't even afford to find themselves into getting some assistance. But we still maintain an office of the president that operates in a quasi-ceremonial role whenever, however, and it's costing us 20 something million a year. That makes no sense. So when you come and telling this small man down there, we have no money, but the president's office directly is still being allocated 20 million a year for this and that, it not making sense. And I'm saying we need to be very careful because the people on the ground would not like to hear those ugly realistic truths. Second, I have literally went on by saying, where it comes to reformation, the justice system needs to be fixed. There is corruption at the level of attorneys. There's corruption at the level, even at judges. We do not hear about the corruption. And this is why, Dr. Esther, when we talk serious crimes are done, we need to determine what are serious crimes. Is it the crime of just the shooting? Because, or are we looking at rape? Are we looking at burglaries? We need to know what are the crimes that form into the category of serious crimes. But it cannot be directly we are just saying, all right, the murder statistics this year is lower than the ones last year. And then we believe directly that serious crimes are done, but yet there are more burglaries. There is the issue of mob house break-ins. There is the issue of rape and sexual issues where it's going on, being reported in police stations. We need to be determined and understand what is serious crime. And if serious crime is just the avenue of if the serious crime is just the avenue of what we call shootings, then I'm going to say this right now. I totally disagree. Because the avenue of white collar crime in Trinidad and Tobago is also one of the very much serious crimes that we very much overlook. And the fact that we've had entities who, because they can't get state contracts now, is a problem, etc. We have to know what we're talking about to that holistic conversation, right? So personally, for me, I will not go out there readily until I have seen the data done by the Central Statistics Office. It should be an independent study, and it should not be done based on the government saying it needs to be done. Until I could see that for myself. You see, we talk university politics, we talk about sending our kids to the university to be able to understand the metrics. But the reason we have a data-driven government now is to allow the independent offices to get the job done. So I'm not personally for me, I'm just saying for me, I'm not saying for everybody else. I'm not interested in a politician coming to just literally say our crime rate is down by 42%. I'm saying show me the data that has driven you to that narrative. If the simple data is saying murder statistics, then that we playing a ball game by a political message saturated in a statistical truth that is right there before us, but we choose to ignore.
Well said. Well said. Hadassa.
Okay, well, okay, Lyndon said a lot. So, Trinidad is a very interesting place. With respect to eliminating, say, the role of the president, while I understand that it is superfluous and we don't need one, I think that that is a can of worms that Kamala Prasad Bisesa should doesn't necessarily have to touch right now because of the backlash that she's going to face. Um, and I feel like we have other things that more pressing things that we need to address. If the role of the president costs us 20 million a year, it is a lot of money. I agree. Unless we can identify a plethora of other roles and offices that would help us to amass a significant amount of money to make these eliminations worth it. I don't know if it would put any dent in terms of the type of debt that PNM left us in, the type of debt that we're in. Um, I agree with what you said in terms of serious crimes. Um, but of course, again, if we have to have a nuanced discussion, there are different types of crime. Um, and I'm not saying that white collar crime and corruption, we know that we are a very corrupt society. Um, and I, for one, as well, would also call for constitutional reform in terms of treating with all these things. But I do feel like we need to acknowledge that in terms of murders and things like that, there has been a reduction. And I feel like to lump everything together is to do what everybody else is doing and say that the UNC is not doing anything, which is also not true. Um, we have a lot of work to do, but I feel like it is important for us to stop and identify and acknowledge whatever progress that we've made, because I think it is important in these discussions as well to keep the population and keep citizens hopeful, because we do not want a repeat of the 10 years that we just came out under with the PNM. um, so that's my take in that. And finally, what else do I want to say? Oh, in terms of constitutional reform and dealing with the different types of crimes, dealing with corruption at the levels of, say, the justices and lawyers and things like that, I actually feel that we need to implement punishments for misbehavior in public life. So it is the type of punishment, I'm not saying hang anybody, but the type of punishment that would um, induce public servants and people in those offices to think twice before trying to do things that generally hurts um, the public. I know that I know that a lot of people are feeling a sense of dissatisfaction um, because they were promise change and things like that. And I feel like while change is happening, it is not an overnight solution. It's not a take a brush and all your problems are solved. So it is a very tricky thing to ask people who have been under a lot of pressure to be patient and to hold strain. Um, and we are not saying any of those things. Nobody is saying tighten your belt or anything like that. But I feel like it is important for me, especially, to focus on the good work that is being done, or else where are we? What situation are we in? Esther?
Yeah, that is very important at this point in time. Um, and I'm hearing this conversation is a good one because we want change. It was promised on the campaign trail that change is going to come, it's going to take place. What I want us to understand, and for the people to understand, change, do not, this excessive type of depression that the PNM have left this country under, That is going to take some time. And I heard Lyndon talk about having two head of state, and I totally agree. I've been saying that for years. We don't need to have a prime minister and a president. And as far as I'm concerned, the president is either we change the constitution or whatever policy to have a president instead of a prime minister, or we just get rid of the president and have a prime minister, as the case may be. But there should be one, because one to me is irrelevant. We don't need a second state, head of state, all right? However, those are things that, just according to Hadassa, our prime minister have gotten enough licks. And I know her shoulder is broad, even though she might be very small and like looking like a handful. Her shoulder is broad and her stomach is tight, it's not tender, okay? So she can handle it, but I don't think it's fair for her to have to deal with that now, because there's so much more. Lyndon alluded to people being homeless. There are a lot of people I am meeting. They're not crazy, they're not mad. They don't have money to pay rent, and they take whatever they can take, their clothes, and they are on the street and they're lying down and they have no choice but to make themselves comfortable. Husband and wife, I saw, sometimes I wish there is a place I could put people. They are on the street, and people would think, well, you know, they were working in CPEP, they were working here. They no longer have their job. And while I'm on that, I need to say, because, you know, under the Ministry of Rural Development and so on, they put out where people should go online and register for these job maintenance and blah, blah, like what it was in CPEP for cutting grass and all this kind of thing. I opened my personal office to have people come in and do the registration, and it wasn't possible. People, the link that they have is not, people went there and wasn't able to sign in. So the ministry, I'm asking Minister Amin, Khadija Amin, to look into that. And it's not only our office, there are other people that I communicated with, and they said that people were saying that they were not getting through. People want a job, whether, okay, we know it's not going to be at 2 hours anymore. You're going to work for your money, and I totally support that. But we need to have the things in place so people can get the job. Some young men and women are diverting to going and selling weed. They're taking a few to sell to make some money so they could buy food for their children. And let me say that this is real. It is happening. Okay? And people are getting frustrated. We understand all of that. But then there is a lot that this government has done in 1 year already. A whole lot, Lyndon, and it's not evident because you don't hear about it. It is our responsibility to talk about it. And it has been helping a lot of parents, a lot of family. But the ones who are really down, some of those children are not even going to school. So even if they get a laptop, it doesn't make any sense, because they do not have the means to send the children to school. So you have, yes, laptop for students, and those are some of the achievements, right? The PM expand the Children's Life Fund. We heard of those things, and we need to remind people. And there are people who are already benefiting from it. But I want to say that the real people on the ground who are suffering, the people who we expect to go and dip their hands in their finger in the ink to get us back there in the next 4 years, because we have come to a close of 1 year. We need to make sure that they are being looked after. These people are crying, they are hurting, they're saying better they didn't vote, better whatever, because nothing is happening for them. It's not so for everybody, but those are the people we need to look after. The government scrapped TTRA, the government scrapped the merit points, and stand your ground bill, the new top cup approval, 159 school repairs, extended hours in healthcare centers. I recall the healthcare centers that used to be open, in some cases 24 hours, to put less burden on the hospital. When the PNM came into power, they probably just had a few of the health centers operating, and not even for whole nights or until midnight, as the case may be. It is back in order, and everything is coming back. You know, in phases. Everything can happen at once. There is a lot that is taking place. Job recruitment drive, and people saying they registered, because I'm always on the ground. Today I was distributing hampers because, my God, I prefer to stay without and fast and allow people to have something for them, for their children and themselves. It is really difficult, we know that. But as we come to the close of our 1 year in government, a lot has been done. We cannot deny that. But the reality is still that a lot has to be done. Overall, a lot has to be done. And we need to see about the people on the ground, people who cannot afford to pay their rent because they have no job anymore. The CPEP closed down because of all the, all the issues that was taking place, all the ghost gangs on CPEP and all of that. And these things had to be revamped. It couldn't continue. And these are some of the drastic decisions that the Prime Minister has taken, Lyndon. And I know there's much more for her to take. But these are some of the things. You know what is to close on CPEP? To close on that CPEP URP, it had a real belly because people getting on terrible. But at the same time, we are asking them to have a little hope, a little more patience. But when you're hungry, you just have patience. Could you really have patience when you're hungry, when you can't pay your rent and you're being put on the street? It is difficult, but we're still standing with the government because we know what they are doing is going to transform this country. Everybody's not going to get everything at the same time, but it is going to happen.
Let me just share this.
Yes, sir.
For us to be able to have the necessary confidence that this is going to have to happen, our style of communication needs to change. It is annoying when you have to, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen now. We are seeing senators and ministers are in the face of the media. And sometimes when I look at the responses and the way the ministers respond, it doesn't tell a lot of people much. If it were me, I'm going to say tonight, I would have been making one recommendation for all ministers to be able to go on a retreat, 3-day workshop, no more. I would call Samantha Best and say, listen, we need to have that retreat going now, because where it comes to government responses and protocol, public relations is a very serious thing that connects with the people on the ground. And if we have ministers who are responding with their egos and not necessary to understand that it's the man on the ground that's paying your salary and the questions deserves answers, then I have a problem with that. And I said that very recently because I saw an interview by Minister Faris Alwari, and I saw the response and I said to myself, if you are coming under investigations, not just from your office, then you should also directly come under investigations for your law license. Because we need to understand, we cannot be saying there is one law or one former prime minister said, politics have a morality of its own. I fail to believe that nonsense. It's either the current administration is ready to send a message across that says, regardless of your information, and I hold the prime minister directly to our words, that if you cannot perform, she will be the first to fire you out of office. We literally saw an inquiry that said a senator had to be removed. My question today is why that senator is even still functioning as a senator. We need to be careful of the message that we are sending, because had that senator done that on our next rule, or if you do that in a court system that you are found lying, there are real penalties to pay. But yet this senator is still there. Why is John Bates still operating as a senator? Just the fact that she did something that breaches the privileges of that office, she should have been removed immediately. And we can't, and equally to that fact, Why are we waiting on to hear what the opposition is doing? That same metric needs to be set in stone for this government so that ministers understand when you betray the interests of the state and you do anything that puts your office into dispute, you shouldn't have to wait for the minister to ask you to fire yourself. You know directly immediately that you should resign office. And if we cannot set that standard where the people on the ground could say, yes, justice ain't happening for the small man who they say they are holding with guns. Let me give you my professional opinion on this situation with that young boy. I am not of the belief, until Lyndon Mack understands the motive as to how that young man was going to benefit by stealing those weapons, I am not convinced. The story does not add up. There's a popular colloquial saying, when the fisherman know it's fishing, he don't ever say it's fishing. And
Yeah.
I think this is where the prime minister, and I'm going to say this, if the prime minister cannot, just for one reason, get the necessary information from the office of the Minister of Homeland Security, then I think it's time we bring in some professionals to really get the investigation done, only to get to the bottom of this. But I'm not convinced of the story I'm hearing. That young man would definitely have to be stupid to throw away his whole entire career on the premise of what? No money, no, we don't know. Motive has to be presented with opportunity. And until we understand that, I'm not too really convinced of the story I'm hearing. And as I said, there are more questions than answers. But if we are going to set a real standard in the justice system, it must apply for all. Right now, there are people who believe politicians in this country cannot be touched. I am convinced that the prime minister can't get it done. More convinced that she could have been able to get it done than the former prime minister. But in order to keep that office in and the integrity in check, she needs to be hearing from us and the people on the ground to be able to understand. Don't take one set of advice from people who are your set of advisors. And if your advisors have not advised you of such, maybe it's time you get some new advisors. Because people want to see progress, and I don't think people are going to wait another year before they see some measure of progress. Even if we solve the situation of the justice system in its reformation, 120 days max, let me tell you, that is going to be way more of an advancement to what the People's National Movement couldn't do in 1 decade.
Agreed. Agreed. I mean, it might sound harsh, and to some they may feel, well, this is not the conversation that we should be having, but this is the conversation, or else we will end up in a position in the next 5 years that much would not have been changed. Yes, getting things in place, getting fire attendants, getting, the laptop back in the schools, but it is much more when it comes to practical evidence that things are being changed. And like you stated at the beginning, even if this government is not in power or in place, whoever comes in, it must be a system that will work for every government that is there, as long as they believe in integrity and they believe in the citizens being happy and comfortable and all of that. And I think the only person that can really make those changes is none other than our Prime Minister, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar. No other government. The PNM wouldn't do it, and nobody else, I think, is going to do it. It will take a UNC government to make those changes. And like you said, she has to put on the bullhorn. And I mean, she made statements before, and she would be surprised how the people is going to support her, because the people want change. The people cannot deal with this anymore. We cannot deal with it. I have a clip producer with a young lady talking about the death of the young child in Mover. You have that ready? I want us to listen to the hurt, not just what she's saying and crying. Listen to the hurt that is emanating out of that young woman.
Top of the afternoon. Top of this Top of the afternoon. I would love, I would really love to address, you see, the holders of weapons in this Trinidad here. I want to address all here. Let me ask you a question now. When so they will give you a ease up? When so they will stop taking innocent lives? When so they will get a hard boy? When so? All they watch that little girl boy. All they watch that little girl in Dakar. And still boy. When so all they want to get weak, ease up boy. So what we have to do? We have to take the children out of schools. We have to keep them home. We can't go to work because we ain't sure to walk out the door and come back home in one piece. When so boy, when so we will get ease up boy. When so boy. All it take away that little girl life, boy. That little girl ain't get to live, boy. That could have been my own, boy. When so they will give me a ease, boy. And then we hear on the net every day. Bacchanalians warring one another when we supposed to be standing up and defending we territory, because we as the people have the power. When so boy? When so? We as the people will get it together and stop fighting one another boy. When so boy? When? Every goddamn day is her life. Just going. Every single day is her life. It's her bloodshed. But then we want to be looking only inside of the box and not outside of the box. This picture bigger than me and you. But no, we will fight down one another, kill out one another, and then look for a solution, and then want to bond together. Why every time it's in a killing, we have to come together? Why when somebody have to die is when you want to come together? When we have life and we can come together. But to the holders and weapons, when surely one give you a ease up boy, when only didn't give life, but only take it.
That was very heartbreaking. And I wish there were many like her who would feel that pain. You see, when you reach into that desperate type of pain, it makes you think different. And it's not, when would we get an ease up? The holders of weapons. It's time that the African community come together, and you heard she said it, it's only when this happened. I mean, innocent children have been killed before, but somehow I think this one touched the nerves of many. And it is happening, and I heard the Minister of Homeland Security said, we need to go back, if any of us are old enough here to remember, as children, your parents taught you to pray. You have to pray before you go to sleep. Pray when you get up. say good morning, mommy and daddy. Those things don't happen anymore. There is no respect. And who is to be blamed? Who do we blame? The government? We blame the parents who are not training the children properly. There is no moral values anymore. People walk and pass you straight. They come into the office, they don't even tell you good morning. And it's coming like America. America is like that, you know. They're coming in, the young people, they pass you as though you are ghosts. Is the same thing going to be happening in Trinidad or in the Caribbean? Because our parents are not training us like our parents train us, and we say we're not going to train our children the way our parents train us. There was room for discipline. Okay? You get up, you had to do chores. Today the children are not taught to do any chores in the home. They get up and they barely say good morning to their parents. But there's come and quarrel about the food, or no food ain't cooked yet. They come in the house and raising a pot. You think we could have ever done that? We come home and we wait for our parents to give us something to eat. We dare not ask about if food cooked yet or not. It's a level of disrespect, and I felt the pain in that young lady. When would they get a ease up? No ease up, because too much guns in their hands. And yes, where the guns coming from? These are things that we don't want to deal with. The PNM allow a lot of these young people to have guns in their hands, and no people going to get vexed because I said the PNM, but it is the leaders of the PNM who encourages this kind of, you know, violence that is taken, set of gangs. The CPEP is evidence. Only gang leaders. How much killing we have heard before, and we may talk, and I know we want to have these things categorized and all of that. But the murders is what we are talking about. When they talk about serious crime, and I know what really should be done, they're talking about murders. What about all the fighting and stabbing and stuff in the schools? A lot of that we see have come, you know, has ceased. The home invasion, a lot of those things have been taking place under the PNM. The PNM leadership seems to have no kind of heart for human beings, for the lesser man on the ground. They don't care about us. And the UNC, we the UNC have to do something to bring an ease to these people. It's not everybody in Mova and Laventille is criminals. It's not everybody in Mova and Laventille and in those areas that they put, you know, pinpoint it's criminals. But of course, it's because of how we brought up our children. It is in Shogunas, it is in Couva, and it's coming all through the country. Look at Tobago. Tobago never used to have, I used to love to go to Tobago. Now if you're going, you have to be careful because it's accidents and it's, what you call it, murders. The PNM stayed in power for a decade and Tobago has changed. Why? Certain people gone over there and they start letting loose their ammunitions and guns to the young African children, the young ones who are innocent in the sense that they don't have the parents with the money to send them to school. This is what is happening at the end of the day. The murder on Sunday, look who it was. We don't like to talk these things. I'm not afraid to talk it. Until we come to the realization and talk these things, air it out. And it will only take a UNC government to make the change in the African community and otherwise. Because the PNM ain't care nothing about their people. A young, beautiful little child lose her life and the opportunity to become somebody great in this life. Sometimes I feel like, I think tonight I feel like, you know, I am tired. I am tired. Where are we going? Yes, policies need to change and things need to happen. And as far as I'm concerned, the PNM need to get out of the picture. The leadership of the PNM, we know they're dead already. And they're just putting up a front. And Penny and all the others who come and talk about what is the crime plan. And I know, as Lyndon said, we have to be a little more out there. We need to share more. We need to find a forum where everybody is hearing us, all the platform, because there is a crime plan. But a lot of people are not aware of it. And Lyndon said it correctly. So we have to do a lot. It is a lot on the shoulders of our prime minister and her ministers, because this country, we need to admit, this country has gone to the gutter under the PNM. Every ministry is in a mess. And like that woman said, it could have been my child, it could have been my niece, my nephew, my cousin. We have to think about that. Crime should be everybody's business. Don't wait until it reaches at our door. It must be all of our business. And if it is our business, we're going to ensure that our children are brought up in discipline and understand. And I know the minister of, everybody point fingers at him, of the minister of, it always slips me because he's not national security, Homeland, has a heart for things to change. And we're going to see it in the coming year. And like it is shared, we need to be more vocal. Yes, Lyndon, I take that. We need to be at every corner. We need to be on every platform. And somehow, the Prime Minister wants that. She has put things in place for some of us to do it, but I guess it's so much. But that is what we need. The people need to know what is happening. And coming our second year in governance, I think a lot more is going to be shared. There must be a different way to advertise and to get everything out so people would know what is happening. Hadassa, I don't know what that clip would have done to you, but
Um, it was very heartbreaking. I was very moved by it. But I also, yeah, I mean, it evoked a lot of emotions because I also feel really angry. Um, it is a tall order that has been laid at the feet of Kamala Prasad Visesa. We are asking her to clean up 49 years of PNM incompetence. And the thing about it is that at the end of her term, in the next 4 years, when elections roll around again, she will be judged on her performance. Nobody is going to care if the country had money, if the treasury was empty. People are going to be judging based on things that they could feel, tangible things that they could interact with. Do I feel safer? Do I have more money in my account? Are my children safer? Can I afford to buy groceries? Um, but we are dealing with so many complex layers of a society that has literally been left to decay, that is in ruin. And while there are a lot of achievements, and I love to talk about them because that is my favorite segment of the show, again, all of it really doesn't matter if the man on the ground doesn't feel it. It would also be remiss of me to not say that we do have an opposition that wants us to fail. They do not want Kamala Prasad Visasa and her UNC administration to be successful. So yes, I have my suspicions of of um, operators within the different ministries that are working assiduously to sabotage the government. But again, at the end of the day, people don't care about it. That is for the prime minister to make difficult decisions about hiring and firing, who is close to her, where she gets her advice from, and all of those things. But again, the opposition does want us to fail. A perfect example is the ORP that shut down the $3.4 billion distribution of contracts for houses to be built. We always talk about crime in this country, but crime of itself is just the symptom of a lot of other things. It is the educational gap that the PNM has left. It is the agricultural gap, our ability to not feed ourselves and have cheaper prices. That is an issue that we're dealing with. Is the societal gap. It is our lack of response to mental health and to social ills. It is the PNM not having a robust economic plan for our country beyond oil and gas and a lot of things that had to be shut down to hide their own corruption. AV oil comes to mind. So when the ORP decided that okay, they're going to put a hold on the distribution of these contracts, where it is to build houses, 20,000 houses is the aim of our prime minister, and there's research that shows countries where home ownership is high, there is less crime, right? We are actually trying now to deal with the root of all these issues, to deal with crime in a systematic way, to deal with it at the cause. And of course, we now have to deal with the bureaucracy, the whole way that government operates, with having to toe the line with checks and balances. And yes, of course. But I also believe that that was inveigled again by PNM mischief, because we I was amazed when the prime minister was able to find the $6.2 million to equip the fire stations with tenders. And I was like, where did she get the money? Right? And people asking where you're going to get the money to build the houses. But this was a remarkable initiative with public and private sector uh, collaboration, where these private contractors were going to fit the bill to build these houses. And then when the homes were actually sold and people got their financing through the banks and whatnot, that is how they would eventually be paid. And that was a fantastic idea in a time when the country does not have money to still fulfill the need of housing. And yet still it was shut down. The same way the Zoso bill was shut down. And this is what we have to deal with. These are the frustrations of government in the face of people wanting to see change and in the face of us really wanting to see the UNC administration succeed. That's all I have to say for now, because I am a person. I always like to examine the shades of gray, because everything is not always black and white, and I like to have conversations with people to implore them to read between the lines. And that's it for me.
Totally agree. Lyndon, we coming to a close, so
Yeah, sorry about that. You hear me now?
yes.
You hear me? So yeah, a lot of things have been said, and I think these will be my closing remarks. I understand the avenue of moving to create some change, create some changes, but we will need some good PR. And I'm saying this because I'm not too convinced that the PR I'm seeing now, the PR strategy that I'm seeing now from the current administration, is really convincing enough to build that partnership. You see, we can't be saying at one point we want to get the changes done, but we have, I believe we have the qualified people within our spectrum to bring the necessary changes. But then we have attacking happening from our own politicians, seeking to destabilize the people who are there and are qualified to get the work done. And I'm saying that if we are seriously going to talk about required changes, then we need the right leadership. And when I say leadership, we need the right leadership of influence to move to get the job done. This also has to involve partnership. I could say to you right now, we have business persons in the Trinidad and Tobago right now who have a problem because where they would want to have the required protection to be able to protect themselves and their businesses, there's an administrative flow there that needs to be changed. And if we're going to directly talk about the avenue of crime solutions and our crime preventative approach, we have to understand that approaching this has to be a two-way street. What is our crime prevention initiatives? Is it our boosting of our youth clubs in order to show them where the activities are, providing the skill set and jobs for persons? You know, we need to know what that granular design looks like. When it comes to our crime management, what does that look like in the plan? I I have to be very honest from the standpoint of looking at this holistically. And I'm saying I don't know what the plan is. Until to say anything otherwise will be to betray the confidence of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, who is now looking to us as the people who are speaking on behalf of the government to have confidence. And this is where the power of influence is coming from. I think there are some square pegs in wrong holes. The Prime Minister needs to move out now and revamp, even if it calls to the change of ministerial positions, it is needed because we are going into a critical mode whereby people are, it's like that the situation of that mother alone and those cries alone, it's harsh to see. But the same position I remained 15 years ago that says, if we don't move to change out the current system that we have, you could expect to see more violent crimes happening. And then we are just going to be the reactive society that will bawl for 9 days until the other murders. And that creates a form of desensitization. We need to be careful of that. And if that needs to be fixed now, I think the Prime Minister needs now to come and rule with an iron fist in order to ensure that her legacy remains intact and that in the avenue of the next year to come, she would have been able to accomplish this much. We know the PNM have not done a number of things, and we also know that the PNM literally has been behind some of, and I have to say some, I will not sit here and say it's behind all of the crime situations that we have. Because to literally just see that without the proof, it's about a trust issue, and I need to ensure that we are remaining balanced, the scale of that conversation. And this is the reason why we need what we call the critical thinkers to approach this properly. Because if we are going to sway the other side, they need to see us as bringing the real solutions rather than just saying, it's the PNM this, it's the PNM that. I don't think a lot of people are going to wait the next 365 days a year to hear that narrative. The narrative is, we got a new administration, let us go to work and get it done. The narrative is, we have a new administration that has to input policy. Let me tell you what makes more credibility. I'd rather the government come and say to me, we are working on finalizing a comprehensive crime solution, rather than a senator come live and directly try to make fracas with Tom, Dick, and Harry. And if that's the PR, it's a nightmare. And I'm not sugarcoating this, because the people who are hearing this, our councillors, our people who are working, just now we're going to go into our local government election coming soon. We are living in the age of data and information. What they could have get away with 20 and 25 years ago, they cannot get away with. Everything is seen on the internet. Everything is accessible on the internet. So I think this is what needs to be done now. And as I said, if it were me to directly advise the Prime Minister tomorrow, I would say to her, I think you need to shake up the rules now for persons who are in certain ministries and bring new wheels to the table to bring a holistic approach to get this done. And I'm saying this part with no apologies. Where we sitting now and senators making fracas with Gary Griffith and whatever the case may be, I think we need to be realistic. We need the professionalism at play now and stop spinning mud in the table where we're trying to put out and look out there, but there are people who are actually not buying it. I maintain that we are here to work and to ensure that the government goes into our next transaction. But if we have to do this, we have to do this on a holistic approach. Now, I'm not confident right now the PR that we are seeing that is coming from our own is giving me the confidence that I'm seeing. And I think we need that shaking up. I think if the person who is there now can't get the job done and that there's no comprehensive plan in the next 90 to 120 working days, shake up the ministries and put the people who I think should be there to get the job done. Even if we have to appoint as temporary senators to get XYZ done, get it done. Let's get the job done and stop the avenue of the talk. The United National Congress has been there a year, and we know that they are in office. I think everybody has recognized that. But now, this is the conversation about the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and not just the party in power.
Thank you, Lyndon, my friend. Well said, and totally agree with that. Going forward, we need to do some more. We need to do some more, and we definitely need to make sure that a stirring up is taking place. We don't want them to be relaxed, and I know our Prime Minister is going to do something about it because she wants to hear and see things being done. And for those who are not, yeah, we understand as well that in the ministries there is a lot of undermining because we still have a lot of the other parties' representative in there. And we need the Prime Minister to get up with her team, need to find a way to get them out and put people there who is going to allow the agenda of this government, the UNC government, to do what is necessary so that the changes can come about without a lot of stress and frustration. So definitely, I agree with that, and I know it will take some strength and strings to pull, but I also know that the Prime Minister, she can do it. She has the capability, and I think she's a fearless woman. But by now, she probably put on alligator skin, and she needs to be like Xena, the warrior princess now, to don't, be bothered about anything, whatever they have to say, but do what has to be done. We will stand the consequence because at the end of the day, the consequence is going to be a better Trinidad and Tobago, one that is organized with proper data and things will run smoothly. So Hadassa, your last closing words.
Lyndon has given us a lot to think about tonight. Um, on Saturday, I know the National Congress will be celebrated in the anniversary of 1 year since being back in office. But anniversaries and birthdays and whatnot are a perfect opportunity for reflection and to pivot and to turn new leaves, as they say. Um, so I would be looking to see what type of shaking up is taking place going forward. I agree that some professionalism has gotten away from us, and we need to get back, and we need to not stoop to the level of what has passed as politics in this country in the past, and we need to get back to the work of the people. So again, the Prime Minister has, I know, a lot on her shoulders, but I think that this definitely needs some attention. Um, yes, definitely look at improving the PR. I've always maintained that the work of fighting against PNM propaganda is 24/7. It is hard work. And while they are not good in government, they're very good at this. So we need to do much better on that front. And yeah, I definitely look forward in the future to having more sober conversations where we actually, as citizens, um, make a lot of suggestions and recommendations as to how we want to see things progress, because it does affect each and every one of us. I really enjoyed the show tonight. Back to you, Esther.
Yes, indeed, definitely. And I said this before and I'm going to say it again. The PNM is better in opposition than in power. They say a lot, they do a lot in opposition. They know how to propaganda, they know how to stir up evil and wickedness in the hearts of people who want that to be a part of their journey. But when they're in government, they don't know how to. When they're in government, they know how to do it for the 1% and their friends and their family. But when they're out of government, they know how to talk about what the UNC government is doing that is for everybody, not just friends and family. Of course, in government, you're going to help friends and family. That is doubt. But they also help the people. They help the African community, the Indian community, even the Syrian community does get help. But you see, we have to stand up for what we know because we are on the ground and we hear it all the time. And sometimes we compromise because, we want to look good or we want to be pleased. But hello, being pleased or looking good in the eyes of some, and at the end of the 5 years, we lose the election again because we didn't do what the people want us to do, doesn't make sense to me. And if I have to lose whatever by speaking the truth and allowing our Prime Minister and others to know what has to be done, I'm going to do it. But the truth is, a lot has been done under this government since we have been in power for a year. But I'm looking forward for more to happen, and more so for the man and woman and children who are suffering, who are genuinely suffering, who are on the streets, who don't have any food to eat. It have people who collecting money to do certain things. I have spent so much money. Like I said today, I went out and gave out hampers because it is hard for me. Just like the Prime Minister, she don't like to see children suffer and women suffer. But how much can she alone do? That is why there are people who are employed. Those counselors, we have local government coming on. And I hope that we would sign in the right people who have the right attitude and the right focus to see change in this country, not just to take the money and do their own business and not seeking out what has to be done in their district, to take to the MPs so that the MPs would know what has to be done. There need to be even a reforming of our structure as to how we do things. Under the PNM is the same damn thing. The councillors and the very few, one or two of them work their sole case out, but the masses of them, they don't. And that is what the councillors are supposed to be there for, to seek out what the buttresses need and to take it to the MP, to the executive of their constituency. But I don't know what we think about. We just want to run for these positions. And when the time reaches, we get it and we just relax. We don't go back to the people. We don't find out what are really needed in the communities, and we don't do any reporting. I have been saying this for a very long time. And until we get that right, we will always have problems. Those councillors that are being picked has to be the councillors who understand what is their roles and function and are going out there and seeking out what is needed to be done. Those of us who are paid to do a job, let us do it so that we can have a better society, or else we're going nowhere. So with that, I want to thank my viewers. I want to thank the producers. I want to thank our guests, Linda and Mark, for coming on and enlightening us. And of course, my co-host, I want to thank us so very much. We are not just having, time to do this. We are all tired. We worked all day. I am still in my work clothes because we have to work and then to come and do this to enlighten the population. But do not be fooled. Do not be naive. The PNM leadership is doing everything in their power, and those who are their financiers, to undermine this government, to make us look as though we are not doing that. But the record speaks for itself. And as Lyndon said, our PR need to be a little more stronger, need to be across the board to debunk the lies and the nastiness of the PNM leadership, who wants us to look as though we are not doing anything. But if you're smart citizens, you would seek it out. Go on the social media, go to the right stations, listen, and you would see the magnitude of work that is being done. And I know that doesn't make any sense to those of you who don't have a job, who are not properly educated to have something better. And what you had was taken away because of the P&M corruption. But we need to do something for you. And I really, really, really pray in God that you all will have some sort of relief shortly. And again, I want to say to Minister of Rural Development, that system where people had to register for the 2 days, it started yesterday at 12 and it finished today at 12, was not functioning. Okay, so we need to do something about it so that people can really get through and get something to do. May God bless all of you. Have a great week for the balance of the week. Next week, Tuesday, we're going to be here again. Real Talk is here to enlighten and empower those of you. And I'm on Sunday morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. where I speak the truth according to the Holy Scriptures. God bless each and every one of you. I love you. We are happy to always be here to share. Until next time, goodbye. I like that one.